Modim Simcha. I'm Doran Ellen Beldotan from Tzfat. I'm going to be making this video, the discussion part of it will be in English, but there'll be some explanations in Hebrew, which I will do my best to translate, B'ezrat Hashem, for those who need it. We're going to be speaking about Pesach, please God, in this video, in this discussion, what Pesach really is. First, I should like to say that in my last videos, both in English and in Hebrew, I explained that the government is an externalization of that which is normally our subconscious, and if we learn Torah correctly, we gain control over our subconscious, and we understand that all of the people that we see around us are those aspects of ourselves which are the facets that become entire personalities in and of themselves. And I said that if one knows themselves deeply, they're able to communicate with the other personalities around them as though they're thinking their own thoughts. And I also said that the Torah ecology of the land of Israel will not tolerate contamination by foreign influences, by Babylonian influences, that will not allow, will not be allowed to be imported. Subsequently, the governments of both the United States and Israel ordered the shutdown of the B'tei Midrash. And there was nothing that any of the rabbis, no matter how powerful, could do anything about it. I hope we understand one another. Now that we have free time, we can begin to learn real Torah. Let us begin by talking about Torah itself. Torah equaling 611 is Harut, which means pregnancy, ותהר, she will become pregnant. That's also atara, you are pregnant. Therefore, the word Torah itself is a direct address to Jewish women. You are pregnant. Clearly, that address is not being directed toward Jewish men. Yeah? So it is not the place of Jewish men in creation to take on that part of Torah which is the pregnancy itself. The job of Jewish men is to purify themselves to the point where when they learn Torah, their body produces pure sperm, which can then impregnate a Jewish woman, and then she uses that information that has been given to her by the male sperm, by her husband's sperm, to create an embryo and then a fetus and then a live birth. The word sefer in Hebrew, which is normally translated as book, we can hear the word sperm comes from sepharim. Okay? Sperm comes from books. That is spore also. That is the actual seed. The word Sefer in Hebrew equals 340, one of the values of which is Zera Maxia, which means sperm which enlivens. So it's also, Zera is also called Bracha, every blessing which enlivens. So Zera Maxia, that is Sefer, and Torah is Atara, you were pregnant. So it's the job of the male Jews to create sperm which enlivens, which is pure, and for Jewish women then to take that information and build it into living beings. A woman ideally is supposed to know consciously that which is happening within her womb, to know consciously how to build a live body, not for it just to happen physically, but for her to know exactly what she's doing. The same knowledge that is required for the successful completion of the building of a human body is the same knowledge which creates all worlds, all universes. If a woman knows how to build a baby consciously, she knows how to make anything and everything. And that is the true Torah, and that is where we're going now. Women are learning more and more on higher and higher levels. We are going to return to a state in which Jewish men are producing, as a result of holy, true learning, very high quality sperm, which then fertilizes an egg, and that knowledge will be translated into holy Jews and holy worlds. Now, having said that, it is appropriate to understand what Messiah is correctly. First of all, we should understand the word Mashiach as the letter Mem, and the Shin, Yud, and Chet is Chirik. Everywhere you see Mem and Chirik, you are looking at the word Mashiach. The value is 358, and as we know, that is the value Nachash as well, which has very unfortunately been translated as serpent. There, as I've said in other videos, in the Garden of Eden, you do not have four antagonists talking to one another. That is one personality, if it's understood correctly. And please God, we will begin to understand that correctly, so that earth can become Gan Eden as is intended by Hashem. Another one of the values for Mashiach, 358, is Ha'agshama, which means the actualization or the realization. What that means is anyone who says that Mashiach has not yet arrived, or anyone who says that Mashiach was here and left and will be back eventually, is saying in effect that they have not been actualized. They have not been realized. They are still in a state of not being really real. Another one of the values of Mashiach, 358, is the same thing as 1357, because Aleph, as we've said many times, is both 1 and 1000. So another one of the substitution values for Mashiach is Kol Ben Adam, which means every son of Adam. And we should understand when we look at the name Adam that it begins with an Aleph and it ends with a Mem Sofit, which is Em, which is mother. Kol Ben Adam is also Mashiach. Every child of man is Mashiach. Another, I will write this Bezrat Hashem in the description below, so you see that you can check the values for yourselves. It's very, very important when someone teaches Hebrew that they can show the proofs of what they're saying. When someone is learning true Hebrew, Hashem also gives them the proofs so that nobody can wonder whether or not they're just winging it. And anyone who cannot present the proofs of what they say in Torah, anyone who appeals to authority or turns on the charisma or turns on the authoritarian kind of, that look, you have every right to say to him, prove it. Another one of the substitute values of Mashiach, and this is the highest level of Mashiach, is Olamot, which means the mother of worlds, or Kol Olam, the mother of all worlds, of every world. That is Mashiach. That is what Chava was in her manifestation as Nachash, which is Mashiach. She is not only Kol Chai, the mother of everything that lives, she is also the mother of all worlds. Now that we've determined a bit, I would also like to say something about HaMashiach, which is now putting the definite article on it. The letter He, which is the definite article in many functions in Hebrew, is equal to 5, which is the same thing as 1004, or 2003, or 3002. One of the substitute values of the letter He is Gam At, which means, and you too, in the feminine. Gam is a substitute value for Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher Moshe. So the letter He says Gam At Moshe Rabbeinu. That's the letter He. Moshe's name, 345, is HaSefer. And we said before that Sefer is Zera Mechie. So Moshe's name is HaZera Mechie, or Zera HaMechie. And it is also Shelia. Shelia is the, excuse me? Placenta. The placenta. Thank you. My husband needs to help me with the English. Moshe is the placenta. Moshe is that which transfers the information from the mother to the baby. That's that organ of transfer that allows a transfer of information to the level where the embryo and the fetus can receive it without mixing the blood supply of the mother and the embryo. That is Moshe's role in Atara, in Torah. It's also Zera HaMechie. There's also the masculine aspect of it as well, the enlivening sperm. So now we're going to look at HaMashiach. HaMashiach is equal to 363. And then we can see that it says clearly, Moshe Chai. Moshe is alive. Now the word Chai equaling 18 is also Behoveh, which means in the present. So HaMashiach becomes Moshe Behoveh, Moshe in the present. Now 363 is the same thing as 1362, and one of the substitution values for 1362 is Perush Nachon, correct interpretation. When somebody reaches the level of correct interpretation of Torah, which is a biological interpretation, in the exact same way that a human egg can read the information that's been transferred to her by the male and begin to build a person out of it. The female who can interpret Hashem's will correctly can do the very same thing. She can build living beings and even worlds out of it. That is the level that is called HaMashiach. Em ha'olamim. Yes. The mother of worlds. The word Pesach is equal to 148. So is the word Netzach. Netzach means eternity. It's really a very, very, very simple substitution value. All one has to do is take one letter Yud from the Samech in Pesach and tack it onto the Pei, such that the Pei becomes a Tzadi and the Samech becomes a Nun, and then they see clearly that it is Netzach. So Pesach is the celebration of eternity. And soon we're going to see what this has to do with Messiah. Another one of the substitution values for Pesach, this is also a very clear, direct substitution value, is Pisgah, which means the summit. It is the absolute summit. When a fetus has successfully accomplished the formation of the conjunctiva of the eye, birth must ensue very, very quickly, because the conjunctiva can actually overdevelop and begin to deteriorate. And it is God's will that we are born at the optimally developed level of the conjunctiva. What does all this have to do with Pesach? Well, actually everything. The word matzah is also called in Aramaic lachma aniya, which is normally translated as the bread of poverty or the bread of affliction. Bread of poverty would even be more close to it, but that's not the correct translation. In Hebrew, conjunctiva is lachmit ha'ayin. Now are things starting to become clear? The lachma anya is lachmit ha'ayin. And once that has been developed, the birth has to be hastened. Part of the birth process is the breaking of the amniotic sac. When the water flows, you go through the water, right? Starting to become clear now? That's what's being talked about, the birth. That's what Pesach is all about. The word lachmit is also chamalti and machalti. It is also, that's 488, it is also the name of the punctuation mark patach. We see that in petach ha'ohel, petach ohel, petach ohel moed. The actual atonement is done by lachmit ha'ayin. When we read Torah and we go from one level of understanding to a higher level, that is the chemla. That is the atonement and the forgiving and getting to higher and higher levels of understanding. There are no ceremonial korbanot. There are no ceremonial sacrifices. The sacrifice that we must make is a lower level of understanding for a higher level of understanding. That is what's being talked about. Going back to the name Pesach. Pesach begins with the letter Pe, which equals 80. 80 is the same as 1079. And now we can consider a number of important substitution values for that letter Pe. Pe is Va'ed, which means forever. Pe is Od, which means more. It's also Va'ad, which is a community, a committee of Va'ad. It is also Lekol, which means to everyone. There's also Klal, which means that which is a generalization, a general principle. Not a generalization in a negative way, but a general principle. Very interestingly, that same word, that same letter, which means general, Klal, Pe, begins also the word Prat, which means a specific. So the general is contained within the Prat, and the Prat is contained, of course, within the general. So that same letter, this is a very, very interesting thing to understand, that the letter Pe that begins the word Prat, which is also Peto, by the way, which is a firstborn, is the Klal. One of the values of the letter Pe being 80 and being 1079 is Masiach Kan. Kan means here and now. Kan is 721, which is Ha-Yikum, the universe. So the letter Pe in Pesach is saying Mashiach Kan, that Mashiach is already here. Now, Kiyum or Yakum is Ben David. I've said that Kan is Ha-Yikum. So the letter Pe is HaMashiach Ben David. The remaining letters in Pesach are, of course, Samech and Chet. We've talked a little bit about that before. Samech and Chet equaling 68 is Kol Chai, all that which lives. We saw that Chava is Em Kol Chai. So Pesach says Mashiach Kan, Mashiach is here, is present, and then Kol Chai, all of that which lives. But Chai, as I said before, is Behoveh, in the present. So Pesach, which I have said is Netzach, says Mashiach Kan, Mashiach is here, Bakol Hoveh, in every present. That is what Mashiach is. That is what Chag Pesach is. The realization that Mashiach is always here in every present. In order to realize that, one has to be really real and not running away from themselves, because Mashiach, as I have said, is Kol Ben Adam, every son, which includes every daughter, because Ben is 702, which is Shabbat. It's also Bat Bikoldo. It is the daughter of every generation. So Ben also contains the daughters within it. It's not just talking about the male, but also the female. So Kol Ben Adam would also then become Kol Bat Mikol Do Adam. Kol Bat Adam Mikol Do. Yes. This is what Pesach is actually saying. I would also like to speak a little bit about what Seder is. Why do we have a Seder on Pesach? Seder is 264. One of the substitution values for the value 1263, which of course is 264, is Tehiyat Hamet, the resurrection of the dead. In other videos I have also explained that Met is not really dead. Dead is a very poor interpretation of what Met is. Met is levavot, which means hearts. Met is also tehillah, as in Tehillat Hashem, a psalm is tehillah, and it's also to give glory to something, to give aggrandizement to something, tehillah. Met is also leidot, which means births. So Seder being Tehiyat Hamet is actually Tehiyat Haleidot, the coming to life of the births. And now we have understood, Bezrat Hashem, what Seder Pesach is correctly. I am not chas v'chalila saying that we should not eat matzah on Pesach. We should keep also the pshat, but we should understand what the internal meaning of it is, such that we are not doing it only ceremonially. One should not eat bread on Pesach even when one understands these things. But the understanding has to be there. And speaking of matzah, what is matzah? If we take one of the yudin from the mem and we put it on the tzadi, we can see that matzah becomes the word kahal. We can see that it becomes kahal, which means the community. Mem and sadi, what do we do with our eyes? We were talking about the conjunctiva of the eye, which is also part of the internal part of the eyelid. Anachnu mematzmetzim, we blink, right? And also the ishonim, the pupils, can expand and contract. To contract is litzamtzem. I'm not talking now about all kinds of mystical tzimtzum. I'm talking about the way it really should be understood, is the expansion and the contraction of our own pupils, and how that happens when we're learning, and how we're seeing, and we can control the flow of light into our eyes. We're supposed to be able to do that, because the flow of light into our eyes will give us the ability to bring about the atonement as we should, because we'll see Torah as we should in higher and higher levels. So matzah also relates to the issue of the eye, the tzimtzum, the blinking, litzamtzem, and the contraction. Matzah is also mipiha, from her mouth. That's also matzah. The name Elohim, the 646, is poseket and is medaberet. Now we understand the connection with mipiha. The name Elohim, equaling 646, is also lidorot, which means 4 generations, or for the generations, to the generations. The name Havaya, as I've said before, equals 26, which is the same thing as 125. one of the substitution values for the name Havaya is Adam et Chava, which means Adam with Chava. So the name Havaya, Elohim, is literally Chava medaberet et Adam. Chava is speaking with Adam. That is what Torah is, that we are being addressed. It's also Chava et Adam lidorot. Chava with Adam to the generations. Clearly that is exactly what Torah is and what the instruction is. Torah, we've said, is 611. One of the important substitution values that we should all know is that it is also ha'atzamot, the bones. We can understand the word ha'atzamot as etza, which means a suggestion, which means giving good advice, etza. And then mem, vav, and tav, instead of looking at that as mavet, as death, to look at it as ha'emet. So Torah is ha'atzamot, which is etza ha'emet. Hashem is giving you the advice of truth, and we need to understand what Hashem is saying. I had to stop the video and upload it because the card filled up, and I saw that somebody was saying this year we didn't have a seder, we had a seger. I'm very, very glad they said that. That's true, but one should understand that the word seger, which means closing down, is an anagram of shoresh garas, which means to learn, and it should be to interpret. In Aramaic, girsa is written with another aleph. The difference between garas and seder is that aleph, and indeed in Aramaic, as my husband correctly pointed out to me, that's the seder. So we have not been put under lockdown this year. We have been put in a position of interpreting Pesach correctly. We got a Pesach span, we got a timeout, and we can sit down and understand things. It's also the letter Aleph, not just as one, but now as 1,000 equals the word tam, which means someone who is perfect, someone who is pure. So Seder, which we've said is Techiyat Hamet, and we've interpreted what that means, is also Tam Garas, a perfect one interpreted and learned correctly. When we learn Torah correctly, in purity, exactly what happens is Techiyat Hamet. We have enlivening births from it. It's not meant to be learned like a secular book. We are supposed to know how to create real worlds directly out of Torah. If we do not know that, then we are not learning Torah correctly, and we may be very sure that we are still situated in downtown Sumbradita, even if we have bought a fancy schmancy apartment in Heichal David, what is it called, that complex where the condominiums go for $1 trillion or those people are still living in Sumbradita. So the idea is to come back to Israel, and relative to that, Bezrat Hashem, I want to talk about the extreme importance of going back to understanding Torah time. And there is this argument that we use the name of Babylonian gods to elevate them is absolute Narishkeit. That's not what's happening, and that's not necessary for any kind of elevation. The word mikraot, which is the writings and the readings of the writings, the holy writings, the holy writ, and the holy reading of the holy writings, is 747, which is zaman, which is time. And it's also lahavin, which means to make someone else understand. People today use the word lahavin as if one understands oneself. That's not correct. Understanding oneself is lavin. To make someone else understand is lahavin. That is also, lahavin is equal to 747 as well. So we understand that in order to be to understand and make someone else understand the mikraot correctly, we have to know how to reckon time correctly. And Babylonian astrology was not just opening up and reading your local astrologer, and it once we adopted the names of those Babylonian Elidim, the gods, the idols. Thank you, my husband's helping me with my English. We also fell into their reckoning of time. It's very, very important that we get back into the flow of Torah time, because it is eternal. Yes? Okay. So, Torah says, HaChodesh hazeh lechem rosh hachodeshim, rishon hu lechem lechodeshei hashana. This is not just the first month of the year. How do I translate? This month to you is the head of the months. The first it is to you for the months of the years. I want to get a little bit more deep into this, because in Hebrew we don't have abstract numbers. We have what's called arachim. Those are values. All of the values that we use to do chilufim, to do the substitution values, is to the purpose of engineering, building worlds that are based on eternally true Torah values. That's very different than using abstract numbers. So if we look at a word like rishon, we should not translate it as first. We have to look into what it's saying. Yes? First of all, the word rosh is head. An anagram of that is osher, which means happiness. And vav and a nun sofit, equaling 706, is the world. It's olam. So rishon is olam osher, a world of happiness. Yes? Now the word for month is chodesh, which is new. There are deeper interpretations. For the time being, I just want to say that. So we should be reckoning time in a way in which every new month is a renewal of a world of happiness. The Hebrew word shana, which is translated as year, which very, very likely is a derivative of the Hebrew word for Ya'o, which is the Nile, right? The Nile overflowed every year very regularly. 355 is the name Paro, the name of Pharaoh. It is also machsheva. We are under Pharaoh's rule until we come in to be under control of our thoughts. When we have attained the moral level sufficient to be able to control our thoughts, we have come out from being under Pharaoh's rule. We are no longer ruled by our thoughts. We are the masters of our thoughts. The same root as Shana is also the root that means to change. At that point, when we gain mastery over our thoughts, we are able, quite literally, to change the world. It says so here, Shana and Rishon. Rishon contains the word world, the Vav and the Nun Sofit. And Shana, Hashana, is Hamachsheva, is thought itself, and it is the change. And Lechadesh is to make something new. We are able to change reality to make it as we wish, as our thoughts wish it to be, when we gain sufficient mastery of it. This is part of the eternal time that Torah is. Torah is the present continuous. This is the central message of Pesach. Where I said before, with God's help, that Pei equaling 80 is Mashiach Kan. Mashiach is here. And the Samech and the Chet in the word Pesach is Bakol Hovei. We are supposed to be living in the present continuous, not to artificially divide the past and the present and the future, but to be living in that present that is constantly unfolding. That is the only place we are ever going to meet up with Mashiach. Mashiach will never ever come to you if you are waiting for some imaginary future. The word atid in future is not, the word atid, in Hebrew is not the word future in English. It is et David, the time of David, and the word ayin tav, which is et, which is the time of, is also karka, the grounding, to be grounded. That is atid, not the future. It is the grounding part of the present continuous. The word avar in Hebrew is 272. It is the same value as ubar. Ubar does not have a vav in it. It is punctuated with a kubutz, not with a shuruk. So the value of it is 272. It is ubar, that which was which means embryo, that which was embryonic, that develops in the present continuous. The embryonic stage of that which is occurring, it always exists. We're always in all of the different stages of life. I've explained this in videos before. So Havar is not a past that isn't there. It is the embryonic stage of Kol Chai, all that lives, everything in the present, Bakol Hovei. This is the central message of Pesach, which is Netzach, to walk into eternity, to be present with Mashiach, which is Ha'agshama, the actualization, the realization. One must enter into the present continuous, because that is the only place where we encounter HaMashiach, which is correct interpretation. Correct interpretation allows us to enter into the present continuous, and it also gives us the power to be able to translate that which is written in Torah into actualization. The word hara, which means pregnant, is 210. It is lefoal, that which has been actualized, that which has been put into, how would you translate lefoal, Abba?
In effect.
In effect. Oh, he's He's wonderful, isn't he? He's become my English teacher. He used to be my Hebrew teacher. It's very funny. In effect, exactly. So hara also means Torah in effect. Actually, in effect. And one of the substitution values for 210, of course, would be 1209, which is the word tirgum. Tirgum is not just translation. It is the translation of Torah from being written into being in effect. And that is what Torah sheba'al pei is actually Torah shebefu'ula. Torah in effect. Thank you for listening. Moadim l'simcha. And we should all have a healthy and happy Shabbat. And Chag HaSheni shel Pesach. Chag HaSheni ze Chag HaSheni shel Netzach. I'm trying to wish you all an eternal celebration, because that is what Pesach is. Thank you. All about. Thank you for listening.
Boy, I have to correct your English. Terrible.